At this time, because of a couple of recent eye surgeries that I've just had, I'm going to sit back tonight and not do the chairmanship, but I would call for a vote for Chairman Pro Tem, please, to take it from here.
Nominate Don Hudson, Chairman Pro Tem.
Second.
Move nomination cease.
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Ms. Hudson.
You win.
Thank you. If you'll all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 3, rules of order. We follow Robert's Rules of Order as well as rules we adopt in our annual,
Organizational meeting.
thank you, our annual organizational meeting. Item number 4, the adoption of Ellsworth City Council minutes from February 4th, 11th, and March 8th. So the 4th and the 8th were special meetings, and the 11th of February was the regular meeting.
Madam Chairman, move to adopt the 3 dates of council minutes.
Here a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? Unanimous. Item 5, the city manager's report.
Councilors, I want to welcome back Chief Mosier, who's freshly back from a freshly minted graduate of the FBI Academy. He left right after New Year's Day and said he'd be back around St. Patrick's Day, and so here he is. Congratulations, Chief Mosier, on the successful completion of this prestigious academy. Welcome back. I would also note that not a lot of events to talk about because we're kind of in that time between winter and spring, but that does bring frost heaves and road problems, and to the members of the public, our road crews are getting out there just as quickly as they can. I would say that this winter is a particularly bad winter, not just in Ellsworth, but in other communities, particularly along the coast, from the frost, warming, heaving conditions that we've had. So patience, please. We appreciate the public's patience in these matters. Finally, Councilor Moore has requested that I talk a little bit about the Harbor Commission meeting, which he was unable to attend. A couple of things, and they'll be before you tonight. One, the state of Maine has granted the City of Ellsworth a $50,000 grant to extend the harbor trail further down into the newest part of the park, which is the former wastewater treatment plant, out to Water Street, so that's good news. And the matching funds for the trail extension are on tonight's agenda. Secondly, the Small Harbors Improvement Program grant from the Maine Department of Transportation. Maine DOT previously granted $75,000 to the city, which the city matched. It turned out that the proposed improvements to upgrade the fuel tanks and add diesel to the mix was more expensive than originally thought. So DOT has agreed to increase their share by an additional $47,000, and we're very appreciative for that. This was not scheduled. They had to find it elsewhere. We'll be getting into the agenda later, but those were the 2 major items that were discussed, and I also believe there's harbor fees on the agenda tonight as well. And that's what I have.
Thank you, David. Item 6, committee reports. If any of the councilors have attended other committee meetings since our last meeting, if they want to share with us what came out of those meetings. All right. Item 7, citizens' comments. This is this section of the meeting where we invite citizens of Ellsworth to come up and speak to the council. If you do come up, I ask that you approach the podium and state your name before speaking. Okay. You will be limited to 3 minutes during your speech.
Fair enough. I can do better than that.
All right.
I'm Mark Whiting. I live in Ellsworth on the Gary Moore Road. And I'm here tonight representing the Green Plan. So we're the group that was advocating a plastic bag ordinance in the town. We appreciate the town council taking this on as a project. We've been made aware of the fact that the state is doing something very similar, and it may be preemptive of town ordinances. And as I've been given authority to speak for our group, and we feel that the city of Ellsworth should go ahead anyway with our ordinance. If anything does happen at the state level, it's going to be it won't be enacted until a year down the road. And so we're much closer to that than and being able to enact something locally, and we believe that we should. And so I just wanted to pass that on to you. So thank you very much. Any questions, by the way? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
I have one.
Yes.
Since it wasn't in his report, road cleanup.
Yes.
Could you quickly go over that for the public, please?
Yeah, so we're going to do a roadside cleanup again this year. It's going to start with the Cardbrook cleanup. That is the end of April, Saturday, I believe it's the 27th. City of Ellsworth is going to provide the bags. We're going to do the Cardbrook cleanup. We'll have some extra trash bags which we'll give out to people who come. And people are encouraged to work on their own to clean up along the roads where they live or roads of interest to them in town. And so from the Cardbrook cleanup on the 27th through March 4, which is the following Saturday, people are encouraged to clean up kind of by yourself. On the 4th of March, on Saturday, we're having an organized 4th of May. Yeah, sorry, yes. It is the 4th of May. We're going to have an organized cleanup. We'll meet at City Hall at 9:30. We'll have some snacks, and I think the Cub Scouts are going to join us, and so we'll be working together. The idea is to clean up trash, put them in these yellow bags. The yellow bags can be left alongside the road, and Public Works will pick them up the following Monday. And that's the end of our annual roadside cleanup. Thank you.
Thank you. Good information get out. That's why I asked.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 8 is, oh, I'm sorry. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? All right. Item number 8 is the presentation of awards.
I don't
Done
believe
tonight?
there are any
Okay.
tonight.
On to unfinished business, the consent agenda. So these items are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Item 9 is Council Order 031901, reservation of the City of Ellsworth's right to harvest alewives. Agenda number 10, Council Order 031902, request of the City Manager to hold a special municipal school budget validation referendum election on June 11th, 2019 for the purpose of validating the school budget and inquiring if this process should continue for another 3 years. Item 11, Council Order number 031903, request of the Harbor Commission to appoint John Knoll as a Harbor Commissioner member with the City of Ellsworth Harbor Commission, term to expire on June 30th, 2021. Do all council members feel good about moving forward with this as one vote? If so, Do I have a motion?
Madam
Chair, move approval as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? Oh, is that a vote or just
Vote.
vote? All in favor? Thank you. New business. Item 12, public hearing and action on the issuance of business licenses. Atlantic Coast Inn, formerly known as Primavera Inn, 200 High Street, Ellsworth, for renewal of a lodging house license. That's when I use this thing. So we'll open the public hearing. Do we have anybody here from Atlantic Coast Inn? Is there anybody that'd like to choose? Go ahead.
It's a renewal.
Renewal.
It's a renewal, they don't have to be, but I
No,
thought I'd
not
ask in
renewal.
case they happen to be.
Yeah.
Is anybody that'd like to speak on the license application for Atlantic Coast Inn? We'll close the public hearing. Do we go through all of these or vote individually?
Individually.
Individual.
All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
for the record, could we ask staff if everything's in order with the application
Absolutely. Heidi says yes.
on all of them? Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. We have a motion?
Madam Chair, move approval of the application of Atlantic Coast Inn.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? Thank you. Morris LLC, doing business as Tag Sporting Bar, 248 State Street, Suite 4, for renewal of a Class A license, amusement, liquor, arcade, and victualler, and renewal of a state Class 11 restaurant, lounge, malt, spirituous, and vinous liquor license. Open the public hearing. Any public comments? Close the public hearing.
Move approval, Madam Chair.
Second.
All in favor? Josie's Country Store, doing business as Josie's Country Store, 126 Surrey Road, for renewal of a city Class C license, liquor and victualler, and a new state Class 3 and 4 restaurant, malt, and vinous liquor license. Open the public hearing. Is there somebody here from Josie's Store?
Yes, there is.
All right.
Do I have to say something?
You do not have to say something.
Just your name.
You may.
Brian Muir, my wife and I own and operate Josie's, and we appreciate your support and the community's support.
Heard wonderful things.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
investment.
Is there any public input on this license application? We'll close the public hearing.
Madam Chair, move to approve Josie's Country Store.
Second.
Any discussion? Yeah.
This goes way back.
Yes.
Is proud to see my paper boy doing
Oh,
such an
gee.
incredible business in our hometown. Congratulations.
You know, it isn't every day that you go to a former stop on the highway, a mom and pop store, and now it's just the other side of my house. It's a restaurant,
Nice.
and a good one.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. All right. Item 13, Council Order 031904, request of the city manager for authorization to amend the cooperative agreement with the Maine Department of Transportation under the Small Harbors Improvements Program to fund upgrades to the fuel tank system at Harbor Park, previously approved as Council Order Number 011808, including additional city matching funds to come from unspent bond proceeds.
Great. Last year, the city council authorized $80,000 towards the replacement of tanks at Harbor Park, including both the replacement of the existing gas tank and as well as the addition of diesel. That in turn was matched with $75,000 in funding from Maine DOT, plus the city independent of that was covering engineering expenses. The bids came in very high last year when it was bid out. Due to several reasons, it's not the best bidding environment right now. Prices are going up, contractors are very busy, and this is fairly specialized work. Also, you're asking a contractor to come into a busy harbor with lots of activities and try to work around existing conditions. So we went back to the drawing boards with our engineer, Andrew McCullough. Our new Public Works Director, Lisa Sekulich, joined the team. The Harbor Commission, of course, front and center as the advocates for this, and looked to a way to work with the DOT to try to put something practicable together. The new estimate for construction is $318,000. I can assure you that the engineers and all the parties have looked at different ways to try to economize and get this done and still keep the harbor open for the summer. So there's going to be compromise in that regard and work together. Met with the new commissioner of the Maine Department of Transportation, the deputy city manager and I, when we were in Augusta on another matter, and he agreed. He understood the importance of this harbor to the marina, to the community, and agreed to an additional $47,000. So of that $318,000 in construction costs, the DOT amount of $75,000 will now be increased to $122,000 to include that $47,000. So out of the 318, just under 40% would come from the DOT. The city in turn had already committed $80,000. We're looking for additional funding of $122,000 from the city to make up the difference, plus cover $18,000 in pre and post engineering and construction management. The proposed funding for this would come out of the January $3 million bond sale. That was the rollover of 2 bond anticipation notes that included this project. There were savings in projects that could cover this. The deputy city manager is here tonight and can talk to the financing end of this. Our public works director, Sekulich, is here tonight, can talk to the engineering aspects of this. And of course, the Harbor Commission can talk about the vision and the strategic goals associated with the project. If it's approved tonight, then the plan will be to put out the bids. Maine DOT, our partner, I believe, has reviewed the final estimates and is on board. And I think everybody's worked very hard to try to get this to a reasonable level. I know it's a lot more money than when we went into it, but if you talk to people who've been bidding out work as of late, it's all the contractors are busy, and you're seeing construction inflation out there. So I guess this is not random right now. So any questions, we can direct them either to me or the right person involved.
So I have a couple of questions. One is, was the project was previously engineered in terms of the original costs. So I guess I'm curious as to why there are new engineering costs along with the management, because the management costs were baked into the original bid, which we didn't move forward on. So where's that additional cost coming from? And then my other question is, has the DOT approved everything in terms of the plan design, or is this a process where we have to submit a full set of plans, they need to review it? And the reason for that question is timing, in terms of when would an RFP actually get out, and is it realistic that it's going to be completed very soon, because we're already into March?
Yeah.
Okay, so question 1 After the first design and cost came back, we looked at how we could potentially save some money, so it was re-engineered from an above-ground tank with a retaining wall to a below-grade tank with less piping and that kind of thing to try to save some cost of a retaining wall. So that's where the engineering cost comes. There's also some cost going forward when we go to construction phase. The majority of the inspection and stuff will be on myself and the harbor master, because there's with the DOT, when you do funds from there, there's certain inspection requirements and certain testing requirements, and so a lot of that will fall on us, but some of it will still fall on the engineer of record. So that's what some of those costs are. As far as RFP, they have reviewed our plans. It's basically, once you guys approve this, we'll do a final overlook, and the hope is to have it out to bid next month at the latest.
Are there any other questions?
I have one. Do any of you know whether or not there's been any inquiries from contractors in the area about when this might be coming out to bid?
Sorry, I didn't introduce myself the first time. Public Works Director, Lisa Cyclage. I have actually received a call from the retaining wall contractor, which unfortunately we got rid of. Outside of that, I have not heard anything from any contractors.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Dan. Counselor Hannafin.
I guess, Tammy, I would be interested in having you explain a little bit about the financing piece of, in particular, are those funds restricted to certain projects? Are those funds available for other usage? Just to understand.
Yep. So when you authorize the borrowing, 2017, or was this the 2019? Sorry.
I believe it's the 2017. It was the
Okay.
first bond anticipation note.
As part of that authorization, you can go above and beyond if you have some savings from other pools of money, because you've already authorized that project. And so within that authorization, it says that the council is allowed to spend more than what was originally estimated, as long as you have the money available.
For that specific project, you couldn't use those dollars for anything else.
For the unspent bond proceeds from the whole pool that we identified.
It has to go to those specified needs.
Does that answer it? Okay.
Basically treating it like a change order.
Yes, you're going to go over on some projects and under on others, and hopefully it all evens out.
And in the past, we've tried to estimate projects closely so we get the right bond. This time, we've learned we went out to a bond anticipation note until the final figures came in, so we could borrow the appropriate amount of money instead of guessing at it. So that's a good policy move for us. Keeps it tighter.
Manager Cole, I have a question about, we talked about how we're looking at contractor inflation because of the time of year and how busy people are. Are these funds from the DOT, do they have a timeline on them? Was it possible to postpone the construction for another year so we could get better construction rates and still use the money from the DOT, or does it have to be used this year?
Well, they expect us to move forward in a reasonable timetable. The project end date is June 30th, 2020, but that anticipates all the way through to final inspection. I would, though, ask our Public Works directors if she has anything to add to that.
I was just making sure you saw the June 30th date. So the June 30th date, 2020 is our end date. When we went back out with this current schedule we're looking to do on this, this next go-around, let's call it. We made it as less restrictive. So the first time we went out, we kind of restricted the work schedule to a point where we thought it potentially was affecting the price, because we gave them such a short window, basically when the harbor wasn't open. That was when we would allow them to do work. This time, we're allowing them to do work while the harbor's open, but we have certain restrictions on how long we can be without fuel, and they are going to tell us how they're going to maintain fuel instead of us telling them when they can or can't be in there. So, could we potentially? Yes, but I still think this, I'm going to call it this season, 2019, is the best option between now and June 30th of next year.
If I could add to that, Madam Chair, part of as the Public Works Director pointed out, we were trying to do it in narrow windows in the fall and spring. And the problem for a contractor is, even if they have access to both windows, they've got to go and remobilize when they come back. So I think this time frame that's laid out is not too long for going out to bid in an expeditious way.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from council? Councilor Fortier?
The end result is I'm going to support it. I'm not happy at all with the increase in the price. I think Councilor Phillips did some computations and paybacks in 159 years with the sale of fuel only. But this is a project that we've gone down the rabbit hole with DOT on, and we're getting so that we're working well with DOT on projects. And I think we need to finish this one and put the harbor fuel project behind us so we can start working on their 5 and 10-year goals. I've heard a lot of buzz about getting diesel down there from a lot of people, so.
Thank you. Additional comments? Questions? Councilor Hamilton?
So I've said this before, and I'm just going to voice it again. We're in a process now where we are looking at capital items and trying to get to a place where we can prioritize. This is the kind of issue that prompted me in terms of wanting that kind of a process, that we're voting on a very expensive item increasing outside the scope of having an opportunity to justify it against other needs. And in 3 months, we're going to be sitting around the table talking about a lot of expenses that we need, a lot of things we need to be doing, and we don't have the luxury of being able to vet those. It's not, and I'm not saying that I'm not in support of this, I think the tanks need to be replaced, but it's just that timing of things. These are the kinds of things that when we look in isolation, we miss the opportunity to be able to collectively justify it, and also for the rest of the residents to understand why certain decisions are being made. So I just want to voice that, because I think it's just another example of where we get stuck in terms of not being able to have a discussion about why this item, why spend dollars here, and then a subsequent meeting we're faced with other decisions that we have to make that are related to financial pieces.
Councilor Phillips?
Thanks. I think the harbor is an important part of our community, undoubtedly, but it's sitting there reading that the other night and looking at the total cost of $318,000 for the tanks. And I spoke with the harbor master earlier, and it is about 10,000 gallons a year that he sells at this point. He may gain some, Lord only knows. There's limited amount of access to that harbor, so there will be sales, but is it going to go through the roof? No. So if you look at it that way, let's use a 20-year lifespan on that, and we're in 30 cents a gallon profit. So for every gallon we pump down there, it's cost the city bills of $1.20 to do that. So it's an expensive thing that there is no payback on. It's not anything that's going to be profitable. It's going to be a service and a chance to enhance our harbor. that bottom line. At 100, at the earlier pricing, I thought it was a pretty good deal, or we could get by with it. At $318,000, it's a pretty substantial investment for a small amount of fuel sales. It truly is.
Other thoughts? Questions? Counselor Fortier?
Ready for motion, ma'am?
Yes.
Move to approve the request of city manager for authorization to amend the cooperative agreement with Maine Department of Transportation under the Small Harbors Improvements Program to fund upgrades to the fuel tank system at Harbor Park, previously approved as Council Order 011808, including additional city match funds, the amount of $134,500 to come from the unspent bond proceeds.
Second.
Additional comments or further questions? I do have one. Tammy, when Counselor Hamilton asked if the unspent bond proceeds were restricted to only go towards the harbor funds, I wasn't clear on your answer.
For this particular one, yes, we're okay. I do have another request further, and so that needed an additional authorization. So you're covered with this one.
Right, and that $134,500 can only be spent on the harbor.
Or with the other projects that were listed within that bond or band that was the Water Street parking lot or the Bayside Road, State Street drainage project. You can use it for those projects. But if you're outside of those scopes, then you'll need to ask for an additional authorization, which you'll see is one of the last items on the agenda, that we're going outside the scope.
And if we didn't use it for this, we could vote on an authorization to spend it elsewhere.
That's correct.
A reallocation.
A reallocation. Did you understand that before? You did.
Excuse me, can the public have a question on it?
Not during this portion of the meeting. Any other comments from the council? So we've had a motion and a second. Go to a vote. All in favor? It's 4. All opposed? 3. Item 14, Council Order 031905, request of the Deputy Treasurer Tax Collector to award bids for tax acquired properties.
Good evening, councilors. Kelly Herrick, Tax Collector. On March 8th, we held a bid opening for 37 Acadia Village timeshares and 9 properties that were acquired for non-payment of real estate taxes. We received bids on 2 of the timeshares and 8 of the properties. It is my recommendation to award the tax acquired properties to the highest bidders. I have attached a spreadsheet detailing the bids received.
Question for you, ma'am. Did by any chance you run a total on that? It's about 65?
I did not.
Okay. Just quick, it looks about 65 coming back into the taxpayers' hands. Madam Chair, move approval of Council Order 031905 as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
We had some. And this is
Councilor
for all
Phillips?
properties as presented, correct?
Yeah, in that
For all the
spreadsheet.
properties as presented?
Yes.
And The one on 1753 Bangor Road,
Yes.
with the assessed value of 96,300 and a bid of 20,050.
Yes, we received another bid, but the gentleman rescinded.
Rescinded the bid. I'm good with all but that one. I would much have preferred to remove that, and the city could dispose of that. I personally feel the value of that is substantially more than the $20,000 it's offered. I do not feel that that was a good move, letting that go for that small amount of money.
That had been for sale for quite some time beforehand, hasn't it? I want to say at least a year. I don't know what the asking price was on it.
Seems,
I agree, 20 would be one heck of a deal.
for anybody. Obviously, the bank must not have any involvement in it, because they would have paid the taxes, so it must be clean, and the folks that own it paid a substantial amount of money for it and then walked away from it. It's in a fairly high traffic area and not a bad access. That's my opinion.
Counselor Fortier?
Thank you. My problem is they didn't walk away from it. They're living in it. So whoever gets it's gonna have to go through the fun of eviction court. I don't know whether we've done any research on the title, whether it's clear. All we're doing is a municipal quitclaim. We don't, I think 22,000 into the taxes and let someone else take care of it. It's only 1 acre.
With a building, septic.
Yeah, but
Well-
you know our assessor is over-assessed all the time. You complain about it every meeting, so.
That's a different story for you. And I think the assessor probably would take offense to that.
Counselor Phillips, I think we could make the same argument for the Bucksport Road property that's assessed at $99,700, and we have a bid of $7,001.
$10,400.75.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, 10,000.
yeah, there's another one too. 61.9 acres,
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot, I've been on that, that's a lot of swamp.
62 acres. It's going to be some good land, I would
It's
think.
that low stuff out on the flats.
Mm.
Do you know anything else about those expensive properties?
I do not.
So, what's your pleasure? Would you like to remove 2 of them and move on the others, or what would you?
My motion stands up or down,
Yeah,
and then we can move on.
All right,
we have a motion and a second.
we have a
think
motion and a second.
I think we've had adequate time to try to get rid of these. I think getting them on the tax roll before April 1st, so the taxable property again, is paramount to the success of that program. And we honor, as we've said here before, honor the bid process.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? 3, all opposed? 4.
Madam Chair.
Councilor Hamilton?
So, going back to the discussion, can we place another motion for the other properties and see where that stands?
Yes.
I think technically the proper way to do it is to accept all bids except for who list them, and we reject those.
So it's consistent with the agenda item, it's just,
Yes.
we can modify.
Which we can.
Would you like to make a motion?
Ask a question. Madam Chair, move to approve council order all bids proposed with the exception of Bucksport Road and 1753 Bangor Road.
Have a motion?
Second.
A second? Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? All opposed? One? Thank you. Item 15, Council Order Number 031906, request of the Deputy Treasurer Tax Collector to offer for sale by public sale timeshare units located at Acadia Village Resort required by non-payment of real estate taxes.
Again, Kelly Herrick, tax collector. As I just explained, on March 8th, we held the bid opening for 37 timeshares that were required for non-payment of taxes. Bids were received on 2 of the timeshares. The remaining 35 did not receive bids. I am requesting authorization to add the 35 timeshares to our existing $100 sale list, which is on a first-come, first-served basis. This would make a total of 239 timeshare weeks available for sale by the city.
I'm wondering if we couldn't have a renewed effort to get out of this entanglement, because it's a circus and not a funny one.
Councilor Fortier?
I would suggest that we have the city manager direct his assessor to find a better way.
Yeah.
We used to tax this as one unit,
Yes.
and they would take care of distributing the taxes per unit, their headache. We are now de facto real estate agent for timeshare failure.
Do you remember why and how that changed?
There was a previous assessor that thought it was a more fair way to do it, if I remember right. Wasn't that Miss Oliver?
And also increase revenue for the city.
But it increased
Not so
work
much.
exponentially.
Right.
Yeah.
These people are taking 35% of their working day working with these timeshares.
Easily.
Yes.
At least.
And
Yes.
if there is a way to unring this bell, we've been trying to figure that out, at least, I'm sure, since the time I've been here, and I'm sure years before that. It's very complicated, and without the cooperation of the condo association, or the timeshare association, I don't know. But we'll explore that further, but I just don't want any expectations there's any easy fix to this, because we've been looking at it.
Can we make them an offer they can't refuse?
Yeah. I will say what research I did do on this when I first came here. It's hard to find other communities that were assessing it the same way we are. I'm sure I think there's one other over in western Maine.
Shocking. So
This is
Yeah.
probably why.
everybody else is doing it differently,
Right.
surprisingly, huh?
Yeah.
And that gives us a good picture of what the things are actually worth, is those have been offered for $100 for years. And have you sold 20 in a year?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah.
Any further comments or questions? I would love to entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the request of the tax collector deputy treasurer to set a sale price of $100 for the 35 timeshare units, which are detailed in the attached document, to write off any remaining tax balances once they are sold.
I'm not seconding
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 16, public hearing and action on amendments to the Ellsworth Water Department terms and conditions.
Good evening, Reggie Wenzo, the superintendent for the water department. So currently, the water department has very few fees that we charge. And the ones that we do charge, we lose money on this. In total, the fees that we could have gained for fiscal year 18 were just shy of $4,000. So this isn't a real. So the total fees that we could have collected for fiscal year 18 came to just shy of $4,000. So this isn't a real moneymaker, but we're just trying to recoup some of the costs that we are losing. We looked around to other towns to see what they charged, and still the rates that we are proposing are lower than theirs.
I need to ask a question. Do the people in the audience hear any of us through the speaker system?
Of the table, but I'm not hearing.
Okay. Say it might be not working. I've got bad eyesight, not hearing.
That's my job.
The other two things, I can see, you can hear, we should be all right.
Councilors, do you have other questions? Comments for Mr. Winslow? After they have questions? Okay.
Just
Yes.
one, Madam Chair. Reggie, on the deactivation and reconnection, 50 and 25, are a lot of those because of residents that go to Florida?
Some are, yes. So they call us. Carrie creates a service order. The guys go out, shut the water off, and pull the meter.
Would there, or could there, is there any sense in making any kind of accommodation for that, giving them a package deal, so to speak?
I think at the rate that we are asking for it, it's still a lot cheaper than a plumber. So it's not a very high cost.
Anything's cheaper, never mind. My brother-in-law could be watching. Okay.
Just a package deal, $75.
Madam Chair.
Councilor Hamilton?
Could you just, for the public, so that everybody knows exactly what you're proposing, which fees and what the fees will be, so that
Certainly.
everybody hears that?
So currently, for an application fee for the secretary for her time to set up and create the accounts, we charge nothing. We were asking for $20. An activation fee, we currently charge $0, and we're asking for $25. And this is to go out and turn a service on. Same with the deactivation fee, that is $0. We're asking for $25. A reconnection fee, this is a fee that we want to charge for someone who is shut off due to lack of payment. We currently charge $25. We're asking for $50. An after hours reconnection fee, currently we charge $37.50. We are asking for $100. The reason this one is high is the crew gets paid 2 hours minimum at the time of time and a half. And for them to go out at $37.50 does not cover the cost for them to go out and turn this service back on. A collection trip fee, we charge $10. We're asking for $20. The bulk water setup fee is new. We're asking for $65. This covers the cost of the application fee, plus the time for the crew to go out and assemble the meter to the hydrant, and then go down and break it down once they're done with the water. And then whatever goes through the meter as well, we'll charge them extra. So it could be an extra $55 for 8,000 gallons.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Fortier?
Thank you. So this tells me that up until this point, if we approve this, that the rest of us that are paying water bills are paying those expenses because nobody else is. It comes out of your general fund
Yes.
to pay this.
Yes.
So now we're starting to get to a truer user fee, that the one causing the expense is actually covering more of that expense as an application fee.
That is 100% correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, and it, as Lisa says, these fees don't apply to anybody who's actually currently paying their water bill. But as you stated, yes, part of our operating costs comes out of water revenue.
I think it's fair and consistent with other municipalities and water districts in the region.
Thank you. Additional questions from the council? Comments?
I think just an observation that if someone is shut down for not paying their bills, more than likely there's been a trail of efforts to try to rectify the situation, which probably goes well beyond the amount of money that we're asking for that particular one. So I'd definitely support that one.
Any other questions? All right. Hearing none, we will go to a public hearing. Does anybody in the public have something to comment on about the Ellsworth Water Department terms and conditions and the amendments that are being put forth?
Judy Blood, Ellsworth Falls. I just want the council to consider the idea that we are charging double to those people who can probably least afford it.
For the reconnection, $50 rather than $25.
Mm-hmm.
So people who can least afford it, we're charging double.
Hey, Gordon Workman, Ellsworth. If they're leaving for Florida, why can't they just shut off the valve? Wouldn't that be cheaper for them in the long run?
They have to pay the base rate.
But would it be cheaper just to turn the valve off? But
Yeah, it's $55.
it is? And how much does it cost to go out and turn it off and turn it back on? So it's the same? Oh, the sewer too. Okay, I got you. All right. Other question is, now, if they're going to collect the fees and stuff, and that base is, because our cost is covering that cost, do we get to see a reduction on the people that don't have those issues?
Do we get to see a reduction in what, Mr. Workman?
In our water and sewer bill. If you're going to collect the fees that we're now covering, the customer's covering, do we see a reduction in, if those fees are used and approved of, will we see a reduction in our water bill? Just out of curiosity, our quarterly water bill.
So,
May I answer that a second?
please.
Our revenue in the water department last year was 1.2 million. We're talking about $4,000.
Oh, okay, all right.
So,
right, I didn't-
no,
I didn't
you're not
catch
going
that.
to
I
see a
didn't catch that
reduction.
part. I didn't
Yeah,
catch that.
no, you're not going to see a reduction. You may see a slowing of the increase.
I got you. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted
One more
to,
point.
Councilor Moore?
I think an interesting question was raised by Ms. Blood. If this, I'd like to know if that's true, that whether or not you can determine whether whether or not the people who can least afford it are the ones who would have to pay it.
So I just wanted to add, based on last year, we pulled some figures, it would have been 4 people that would have been charged the $50 for reconnection fee. So it's a very minimal amount of people.
Tammy, while you're right there, please. Is water service eligible for general assistance for getting hooked up? It's not? Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments from the public? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing.
I have something I'd like to add to Gordon Workman's question. If somebody calls our utilities coordinator to request their water shut off at the street, their water bill stops from that point on. If they tell us they are leaving and we shut their water off, then they can resume service when they get back. So as long as they leave everything inside the house and we don't touch any of it, then they'll no longer get a bill from us.
Reggie, does the same apply to a sewer bill in that case? Or would they still get a sewer bill? Do you
That
know?
I can't answer. I really don't know.
Sewer bill is tied to the cubic footage used of water, so there would
So
be.
yeah, I don't know if they have a minimum.
Nothing in, nothing out.
Okay.
So you still save money.
Let's see.
So the public hearing is closed. Do we have any other comments from counselors? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, move to amend the water terms and conditions as proposed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? We'll move to a vote. All in favor? All opposed? Item 17, Council Order 031907, request of the Finance Director to write off uncollectible water account balances per spreadsheet available in the City Clerk's Department.
So currently, we have several accounts that are past the 6-year mark for sending them to collections. That total is a little over 1,300. And we have some accounts that are under $60, and the fee that the collection agency charges is more than what that account actually has on it. So we're asking to write those accounts off and get them off our books. So the total amount that would be writing off would be $2,149.
I have to say, I was surprised to see RSU 24 listed on this as not
Just-
paying their bill to us.
Okay, so that's not the correct one.
Okay,
RSU has been lumped together and we are going to attempt to collect as a combined total from them.
okay.
So you have a,
Are they off of this list then?
they are off of this list and on our collections list, yes.
Okay, all right,
Outside of that, that was the only
okay,
change that didn't make it on here.
all right. Thank
Sorry.
you.
Public Works Director Lisa, by the way.
It's interesting, Madam Chair, that we've got repetitors and locations. The Hillfire Grill up on the hill.
Yeah.
And then it went to Group 5 Incorporated. So troubled properties are also troubled paying water bills.
Are we able to track that? Are we able to, when, someone asks for water service, pull up these lists and say, yes, when you give us the $24 you owe for the last service that you had with us? We can't. Again?
It would be considered a new customer.
It's a new customer. Same person.
It would be a new customer. If we have a trend going, we can ask for a deposit. We have to hold that deposit. If it collects interest, we have to pay that back. But there is a process that would allow us to do some, requiring a deposit.
Are those state regulations? Or are they
Yeah, PUC.
city? Sorry, yeah, it is.
So that's actually been discussed recently to try to start keeping track of this stuff a little better. So also with these accounts, we've also spent quite a bit of time trying to collect, made several attempts to collect this money.
Are some of the accounts in the name of people who are deceased, or?
There are a few, yes.
Yeah. So it probably does make much sense to keep trying.
Yeah. Keeps coming back
Fair
to us.
assessment, Counselor Warren.
Yeah. Let's see you get sheriff service on them.
Try to keep a straight face.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the request of the Finance Director to write off $2,149.14 in past due closed water accounts per the attached documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council Order 03-1908, request of the Harbor Commission to amend the harbor fee schedule.
Good evening, Adam Wilson, Harbor Master. There's two fees in front of you tonight that I missed last year when we increased them. They're pretty small. The outer harbor mooring fee is going from 10 to 25, which I'll put it as the same rate as the float dock moorings that we have to go down and inspect every other year. It's really, it helps cover the cost. The other one being the transient boaters. We did not increase that one either the last time we increased fees. That's going from 150 to 200 if approved.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions?
I have one. The transient slips, do we still have, if I remember correctly, 2 weeks at a time?
Yes.
And then they have to leave for how long before they could come back?
They have to leave 7 days.
7 days?
Yep.
And if there's nobody lined up, they could come back?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay. $200 is not much money.
No, we're very low on the end of all the harbors around. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not even a quarter of Northeast, which I realize we're not Northeast Harbor, but there's still cruisers out there.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see you next year.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Yes, Councilor Fortier?
It amazes me that someone can read us that well, that at the bottom of the ordinance, JAB number 13, the changes to that item were approved tonight, already in print. Oh, it's approved. It says approved.
Ready? Madam Chair, move to approve Council Order 03-1908, request of the Harbor Commission to amend the harbor fee schedule as attached.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? Thank you, unanimous. Item 19, Council Order Number 031909, requesting the city manager for approval to sign a memorandum of agreement between the City of Ellsworth and the Downey Salmon Federation for removal of the Branch Lake Stream Dam.
Let me frame this up first, and then Public Works Director Sekulich will address it. Approximately 2 years ago, Downey Salmon Federation approached the city about a potential partnership where if they could raise the funds, would we allow them to remove the dam structure at Branch Lake Stream Dam that hasn't been functioning, I believe, for close to or over 20 years. 40, as Councilor 40 years says. So to the Downey Salmon Federation, their goal is to enhance water quality and fish passage. And certainly for the city, there's the additional question of liability because the structure's there in bad shape. So what we have discussed with the Downey Salmon Federation, if they could raise the money and also provide the city assurances in terms of covering liability, indemnification, and all, in terms of the contracting activities to take out this dam, that we bring the agreement before you to consider. And we're at that point. The Public Works Director has worked with the Downey Salmon Federation on a plan and a cooperative or agreement of understanding. Lisa?
So the Downey Salmon Federation is here if you guys have any specific questions on that kind of thing from them. Public Works Director Sekulich. So as David said, 20 years ago, we stopped impounding water at that dam. We worked with the Downey Salmon Federation. We have a memo of agreement we put together that covers the city and requires them to have all the pertinent environmental permits, bonding capacities for the contractor, and liability insurances to cover any potential liabilities on us as the city. Guess any questions you guys have?
Yeah, I got one. You take the dam out, will it change anything in terms of a drastic thing?
So as far as Branch Lake, it will not change. There's no worries in there. Branch Lake is not affected. The stream will still function as a stream. The dam at the lake will control the flow. Really, the reason, don't let me speak for you if I'm out of, they want to take it out for basically for fish purposes and water quality at the junction between the stream and the Union River. But I will let him answer that a little more.
Thank you.
Brett Chicatelier, I work with the Downey Salmon Federation. I'm on our habitat restoration team and I'm a fisheries biologist. Just so, for clarification, this dam does not make Branch Lake. It's at the very bottom of Branch Lake Stream, so it is right at the point where Branch Lake Stream enters into Leonard Lake. And right now, you said the stream ends, pours over when the river's high into Leonard Lake. It's an impoundment that's there seasonally. Because the dam has been abandoned for so long, there's a spillway that will open and close based on debris that fills it up over time. And our hope would be then, by removing this, that habitat below Branch Lake, so the stream below Branch Lake would be open for any fish that are passed up into the Union River, into Leonard Lake or into the Graham Lake, and then back into the river system. And this project's exciting for us because, one, we have some partners who are willing to help make it happen, and at no expense to the city, which we think is really kind of a good thing. And also, with the relicensing of the two hydropower dams on the river, there are some assurances that there will be better improvements to fish passage. Some of those are longer term, in the next 15 years or so. But as those happen and they're phased in, this is some of the first habitat that's right available for Atlantic salmon to access in the river system. So to have this habitat ready as those improvements are made, we think it's a good thing for the species recovery. And then I saw earlier on the agenda there was an agenda item to authorize the city's alewife harvest and fishery. This stream doesn't open up much habitat for alewives, but it does open up habitat for blueback herring, which are a species that are mixed in with alewives and are actually part of the municipal harvest. And they're getting a lot of attention now because there isn't as much habitat identified for those species. So it's nice to kind of add some places for those fish to go to, and then that'll contribute right back into the municipal harvest. So I can answer questions on who we are and other projects we've done like this, but it's been nice and very helpful to work with the city. First, when city manager Michelle was still here, and then Lisa stepped in and helped keep this project moving. So thanks for that so far.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Fortier?
Thank you. It's interesting that when we were growing up, the water from Branch Lake would travel down through the stream unabated through neighborhoods with septic tanks leaking and swimming areas and everything. Would get to this impoundment area at the end of Branch Pond Stream, and we would pipe the water from there under Leonard's Lake to pump station point. You did a video inspection every once in a while of the pipes under the water. There were cracks in them. There were times we were taking in Leonard Lake water and cleaning it. So this is a great opportunity to open that up. Do you know whether, because of this, whether they'll ask us to stock a little bit more in Leonard Lake?
I don't think so, and I really don't. I can't speak to the. That's a DMR decision. So DMR, the agencies, both state and federal. So we are a nonprofit group supported by membership and foundations, but we work a lot with federal and state agencies. And the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has been our main partner on this project in designing and fundraising and bringing some funds to the table. But we've had to alert, main DMR and IFNW about this project. So.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to authorize the city manager to sign and execute an agreement with the Down East Salmon Federation under the conditions noted in the attached memorandum of agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? Unanimous. Item 20, Council Order Number 031910, request to approve a construction over-limit permit for Maine DOT to move construction equipment, material, objects, or loads in excess of legal limits over ways maintained by the City of Ellsworth in support of construction operations for a specific project to be named by Maine DOT in the near future.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? Unanimous. Council Order Number 031911, discussion and action on the clam warden position for the Frenchman Bay Shellfish Program.
Madam Chair, Council, back in December, the Council had a discussion first on the appointment of a council member to the clam
committee?
Shellfish program.
Shellfish, thank you. I was going to say clamfish. Sorry, it's been a long day. The Shellfish Committee, which the Council did, but also there was the discussion of whether the city could continue in the role of doing the enforcement piece of this. Since that time, the Deputy City Manager has worked with the leadership of the Shellfish Alliance to look at other options that they may pursue in the enforcement end. Our chief is back this evening, joining us as well, and he had shared at the time, in December, the concerns of the city police doing enforcement outside of our jurisdiction in the other 7 communities. At the December meeting, I believe the sentiment was to revisit it in March or in the spring. I don't know that we're in the position to recommend any particular course of action tonight. The chief is here, and he can speak to his thoughts on where he stands regarding the clam warden, as well as the deputy city manager, who's been meeting with the leadership of the Shellfish Alliance as well, and go from try to answer your questions and where we should proceed. But again, I don't believe that we have any particular course of action tonight, other than the clock is ticking, and if we are to withdraw in the enforcement activities, there are timetables that have to be met. I believe it's a 60-day window, Tammy, on that. So,
Madam Chair?
Councilor Fortier?
Knowing that Deputy City Manager, I believe, had a conversation with the sheriff's group about this, and the fact that the chief is just fresh back, and they really need to have an opportunity to sit and discuss that discussion before they step up and try to answer our questions. I'd suggest we table this until next month, give them time to come back to us with a report, if that's acceptable. That'll allow us to get into that 60-day window by July 1st.
So I just wanted to add that Chief Mosier and myself and the city manager and two of the members of the Shellfish program met with the sheriff today, and they wouldn't be willing to go forward with the program if it's a full-time officer, certified police officer. There's no money in the program to pay for that. It would probably be, just to start up, would probably be $150,000.
That's what he said today.
Mm-hmm. So we're looking at other alternatives. We had discussed the possibility of 2 part-timers, and the program leaders do feel that that would be sufficient. We wouldn't need to have the additional benefits, and so Chief Mosier had been in on that conversation as well, of kind of where we go from there. Would the council be willing to keep that employee on as a City of Ellsworth employee, with the program still paying for those employees? The police officers, they don't need to carry a gun. Maybe you could answer these questions a little bit more, Glenn.
Good evening, Chief of Police Glenn Mosier. So initially, this was brought forward based on my concern that we had a officer outside of our jurisdiction who was carrying a firearm that was licensed to us and was working under the umbrella of the Ellsworth Police Department and enforcing laws outside of the jurisdiction of the City of Ellsworth. For a time, that individual was commissioned by the sheriff, but the sheriff rescinded that commission due to some outside influences that we had no control over. So it became very concerning to me that we had an individual out there who we had very little control and regulation over what he did, and it became clear to me that there was a clear liability on the part of myself and the city as a whole, having this individual continue to be employed under that status. So it was brought forward to the sheriff's department because it was a much more clear link to them, since these communities are all part of Hancock County. But clearly the sheriff indicated today that the cost to do that was cost prohibitive for the committee. And furthermore, he indicated that if we removed law enforcement function from that individual, that the sheriff's department, not the county, but the sheriff's department, didn't have any interest in pursuing any sort of partnership or control over those individuals, whether they be full-time or part-time. So after that discussion was had, there was some discussion as to where do we go next with this for the sake of the committee. And the discussion was that if they were part-time and they had no law enforcement capacity, they were strictly enforcing civil violations in those communities that are part of this group, that perhaps if there were no other options, if the city saw fit to do it, that those 2 part-time individuals could remain under the umbrella of the Ellsworth Police Department, because we have the the supervision and the command staff to be able to effectively continue to manage these individuals without law enforcement, actual law enforcement powers that would essentially be, in my opinion, or a liability having them outside of our community and outside of our direct command and control. And there was also conversation today that perhaps a non-law enforcement function, 2 part-time, could fall under the umbrella or the direct control of the county, but that would have to be presented to the county commissioners as an option. So when we left the meeting today, the hope that tonight was we would get some sort of guidance from the council as to what direction you prefer to head into, because previously the indication was that you wanted to, and I believe that was partially at my prompting, get out of the enforcement of these violations entirely. And I still support that opinion, but at the same time, without enforcement, the organization can no longer exist due to DMR regulations, which means that all of those who rely on this for their livelihood would no longer have the ability to clam in these multiple communities. So if there are no other options and the county is unwilling to take on the role to supervise these individuals, employ these individuals to do this enforcement at a civil level, then I think that that's something that we would be willing to and able to continue to do. But again, not really my first choice, because with that still comes a whole host of issues and concerns about how do we deal with an individual who's enforcing civil violations in communities outside of Ellsworth when they're Ellsworth city employees and falling under the supervision of the police department, how we would work out the intricacies of dealing with those individuals when there's complaints or issues or concerns, or if those individuals were confronted with issues on the flats where perhaps they were assaulted or they're injured in some way on the job, how those pieces all play into the whole program are all concerns of mine going forward.
Chief, I have a question and a concern, or a question and my question is, I thought this organization, through its own funding, paid for this position. So how can the county not afford it if the organization pays for it?
They don't have enough revenue.
Yeah.
They're talking a substantial, I think our program's $60,000 range, and I believe the sheriff was talking 150 grand.
Yeah, so essentially, and I don't have the exact figures, but essentially, the individual who works the clam warden now, he's not a full sworn Ellsworth police officer, so
Right.
he's not part of our union, he doesn't receive the same benefits, he's not on our pay scale. The way the sheriff made it sound, if they were to accept responsibility for this individual, this was going to be essentially a sworn deputy who would fall under their pay scale, who would receive their benefits, would have a vehicle.
Which I think is their choice, how they handle it or how they approach it. And that sort of leads into my other comment. And we have a few people that are affected by this, but there are other municipalities in this county that have many people that are affected by this. Have we gone to those municipalities and asked for their help and support in getting, this is clearly a county responsibility. It covers municipalities within the county, not within Ellsworth. We really are a faction just like everybody else, and they really should be the umbrella that's overarching this program. So it's clear to me anyway that this shouldn't be a function of the city of Ellsworth, but for the Hancock County. And perhaps if other municipalities came with us to the sheriff's department or the county and said, this needs to be fixed, it's just not been done right, and we need to look at it, may have more sway, more weight than just Ellsworth saying we don't want to do it anymore. And if we don't do it anymore, someone's going to.
Well,
the county would have to.
I agree, and that was that was part of our conversation today with the two individuals from the committee that were there, and hoping for clarification. If it's the wishes of the council that we no longer supervise or have control over the enforcement action of it, whether it's law enforcement oriented or just civil, then the hope is that we could get that, get that sense, get that clarification, go back to those individuals and say, you need to go to the county commissioners and see if they're willing to take on this role. Because right now, the feeling, the vote is of the city council that we no longer want to fill that role. And so that's kind of the clarification we're hoping for, to go back to them and say, this is the wishes. And if they go to the council, if they go to the city, county commissioners, and the county commissioners say, absolutely not, we're not getting involved in this, then it comes to the point where the entire conglomeration, either they take on the role, is the individual towns take on the role, someone steps forward and says, okay, we'll do it, or they don't, and the whole thing, goes by the wayside, or we step back forward and say, okay, since no one else will do it, if we have a vested interest and see that there's value in maintaining this, this relationship and this program, then we decide to take on a new role, which is to manage these two part-time employees who have no law enforcement. Reduces our liability as far as their, those individuals out there. But the way I see it, there's still considerable liability on the part of the city because they are city employees. So.
Okay. Any questions? Mayor?
Madam Chair, we have 13 people in this group that are residents of Ellsworth that are allowed to dig in these other 7 communities, I believe, that are part of this group. Although Ellsworth has no diggable clam flats. From what I understand, the only flat is just below the sewer outlet, and that's permanently closed. If we don't do anything, if we elect to pull out completely, then those 13 people will not be allowed to dig in any of these other communities. But on the other hand, you're right, there are a lot of liabilities that the city carries if we continue with the program, even with the 2 part-timers. This is the fine line we're gonna have to walk. And I would like to see what the county commissioners have to say about it, to get their take on it. Just putting that out there.
Councilor Fortier?
Thank you. If we remember the history behind this whole program, Hancock County and these 7 towns, because they're not previously part of a shellfish group, whenever southern Maine was closed because of red tide toxin, southern Maine clammers decimated our clam flats up here in Hancock County, and we had no control over it. This was a method to preserve the asset for local diggers and a certain amount of non-resident diggers. I think it's worked marvelously well. As far as the asset management goes, we have a problem with the enforcement management. And as I said before, I think there's a lot of moving targets here. I personally would love to see us get out of the supervision part of it. We've done our share. I think someone else needs to do that. But I don't want to vote to destroy the program because we're not willing to support that piece of it. I think there's more questions than there are answers right now that we need to get with the county commissioners, either a couple councilors or a couple shellfish members, but we need to have that conversation on enforcing the ordinances to protect the asset. And take the guns away 100%. I agree. But I don't think it's ready to bake the cake tonight. I think we have too many questions.
Other comments or questions?
Just one. And it has to do with, right from your opening remarks, it seems like this isn't our bailiwick. That it's a program that probably needs to continue. But I think there would have to be a lot of cooperation with the entity that does have the ability to oversee it, and that, of course, is the Sheriff's Department. And maybe something could be worked out where the program could be saved, but I don't think it's something that we can go on our own to do it.
Madam Chair, Councils, I would add that in League of Towns meetings I've attended, Scott Atkins, County Administrator, has been at those meetings, several of them, and there have been discussions, and I know Councilor Fortier has been at some as well, where he talked about shared services among towns, and that doesn't necessarily mean every town, but on things like code enforcement or other things where you have small communities that, by banding together under the county umbrella, might be more economical ways to do things. The county has seemed open to that, so it would seem to me you've got 7 communities, well, 8 including Ellsworth, that I think it's worth taking to the county. If the sheriff's office is not interested, that's one thing, but it doesn't necessarily have to go under law enforcement.
I think jurisdictionally it makes the most sense, personally, for it to be a county thing. So if we have this, huge wave of clamors from southern Maine that come up and clam with their, not abiding by the ordinance, and our Ellsworth City employee goes to enforce it, are there jurisdiction issues with that? I mean, can we legally do that?
Yes.
We can.
Yeah, because the clam statute, clam warden statute gives him, through the individual communities, gives him the authority to enforce those civil violations.
Okay.
Based on the organization and the group.
Okay.
So he does have jurisdictional authority for those civil infractions. The criminal matters that he at one time was enforcing was only granted, that jurisdiction was only granted him through the Sheriff's Department, which again, in this particular case has since been rescinded. So he has no criminal authority outside of the city of Ellsworth. He only has the ability to enforce those civil violations.
Thank you. So, Mr. Freer, do you want to move to table this? Is that what
if the group is done, I would suggest a motion to table and ask staff to research with the county commissioners and the French and Mid-Bay Shellfish Program, a process that we can maintain the viability of the enforcement that leaves Ellsworth without any liability, but we still want to be a partner in it. Something like that. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table this. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Item 22.
The chief just made up for his 3 months away.
Good job. Item 22, a public hearing and action on council order number 031912, amending order number 081706 as previously amended by order number 041810 to reallocate unspent bond proceeds to Harbor Walk Trail Connection Project.
Thank you. So back in August of 2017, the council authorized the issuance of up to nearly $2 million. This was to finance the cost of the State Street Drainage Project, the Bayside Road reconstruction, the Harbor Fuel Tank replacement, as well as the Water Street parking lot. The final cost came in under budget, therefore there were some additional funds. A couple Fridays ago, the council approved the city manager to sign an agreement with Recreational Trails Program through the state of Maine to extend the Ellsworth Harbor Trail Extension Project. The match for this grant was $30,716. As I discussed earlier in the meeting, this is where I'm asking you to reallocate those unspent bond proceeds to this particular project.
Any questions for Mrs. Moat? So, right, we'll go open up. The public hearing is open. Are there any comments from the public about this agenda item? Right, yeah, you just push her right out of the way.
Absolutely.
I'm Phil Hopkins. I live up on Sergeant Drive. Is there any possibility that money could be put into the road budget instead of trails? And I'm thinking specifically of the Winkenpaw Road. We've been down that, using that road, and living up in that area of town for almost 62 years. And I've probably been promised 62 times that they would fix that road up there. I know they've done a piece here and a piece there. It was so bad that they had to haul some crushed rock out there Sunday and fill holes on it. I can only imagine what that cost. And a good part of that went on to the Happy Town Road, which was nearly impassable last night. I have to come down to Ellsworth Falls when I want to go visit my daughter in Blue Hill at times because that road's so bad out there I hate to put my car across it. I'm talking about Happy Town and Winkenpaw roads. So if there's any extra money from anywhere, I'd like to see it go on those roads. I don't know why the council couldn't come up with maybe a 10-year plan to rebuild a quarter of a mile each year and get the 2.5 miles of road done from where it ends, where the blacktop ends right now, out to the four corners where the Happy Town Road is. Possibly they could include that next piece of the Happy Town Road also from the four corners up to where that becomes blacktop. That's nearly a half mile through there. But I don't think a 10-year plan would be out of touch. I know you can't go up there and do that in 1 year. It'd be a hellacious amount of money to fix that road up. But it's got to be done. There's a lot of people live out there, and we're driving in mud, not just this time of year. We're driving in mud year-round. Every time it rains, we get mud. The road is lower than higher than the ditches in some places, but lower in a lot of others, so the water can't get off the road. And it's never going to have a decent road out there until they completely rebuild it. It needs a new base, it needs ditches, it needs culverts. And it doesn't need to be as expensive a project as that last one was out there. There was an awful lot of work done out there that didn't need to be done. The city told us outright, and the engineer agreed, they paid like 15% more money on that project than they needed to spend because they didn't want to put culverts where they needed them. They used under drains and stuff. It's more expensive to build a road that way. It doesn't last as long, didn't make any sense, but they did it anyway. I'm just asking for a decent road for people to drive on out there.
And you're saying it's about 3 miles of road
It's
total?
about 2.5 from where the blacktop ends now to the four corners, and there's about another half a mile of the Happy Town Road that is really in disaster shape. If any of you folks have an opportunity the next day or two, you ought to drive out and take a look at it.
Take your truck, not a car.
I'd recommend a four-wheel drive and maybe chains.
Good to see you, Phil. Been a long time.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins.
Hi, I'm Greg Tabbitt. I'm the president of the Sergeant Drive Road Association. I just want to concur with what he said. I would ask you to prioritize your spending in this town, not only on this issue, but there are others that come up. We seem to be getting the short end of the stick up there. The road's pretty bad.
Thank you.
Madam Chair? Can
Councilor
I make a
Fournier?
quick comment while the gentleman is still here? That's one of the committees that Chairman Blanchett appointed this year. It's a Capital Projects Committee. They've just started to meet 6 weeks ago
Yeah, we've had,
to look at the
4 or 5
overall
grants.
capital projects and prioritize them. So have some input to them, they'll listen to. Because I'm of those believers that 2.5 to 3 miles is gonna cost way more doing a 1/4 of a mile a year than committing to it, doing it in one season, and bonding it and paying it in 10 years.
I understand that,
Yep.
and I thoroughly agree with that. I
Yep.
just knew my chances of asking to have it all rebuilt next year are 0.
Just a point, in regards to the Wincompaw Road, every time it washes out and that silt leaves the road, it goes right into our water supply, Branch Pond.
Got it.
Every load of gravel they pick up that washes away, we know where it ends up.
Any other questions? Comments?
Describe to us what that trail might look like?
To the podium so we can.
I was just hoping for a description of what that Harborside Trail might look like, where it might run.
Would you please state your name for the
This is John Stein.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Public Works Director Seklich again. So the trail, final details of the trail are still to be worked out exactly what material is going to be, but essentially it will connect the current large gazebo we have down there over to the smaller gazebo and then back out to Water Street. Just kind of a,
There's a map.
yep.
Yes.
Councilor Hamilton?
So we didn't answer the question because you asked about these funds, and if I'm correct, based on what you said earlier, these funds can't be moved to other projects. They have to be associated with those original projects. Is that,
No, you can reallocate them to other projects,
so those can be totally reallocated?
Correct. Which is what we did on this one, because it really doesn't relate. The project that we did approve was the Harbor Fuel tank replacement, which you could allocate additional funds for
Okay,
it, but
okay.
we're reallocating because it's a completely different project.
And then I would just want to echo, as we get into the budgeting process and we have our budget meetings, I would hope that people are able to attend and listen and weigh in on it, to listen to those discussions about capital needs. There's a lot of needs that we have, and we really do need to start planning, and we need to start looking at and prioritizing, and it's most helpful when there's more input.
Do you have other comments from the public on this action item? Hearing none, we'll close the public meeting. Any comments from the council? Do you have a motion?
Madam Chair, resolved to approve amending Council Order 031912 to amend Order 081706 as previously amended by Order 041810 to reallocate unspent bond funds proceeds in the amount of $30,716 to Harbor Walk Trail Connection Project, and also to authorize the attached written order.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? All opposed? Counselor Moore, were you in favor?
Yeah.
You were. All opposed? Abstentions? All right, I didn't get a unanimous count on that. So we'll try it one more time. All in favor? All right, unanimous. Thank you. Item number 23, executive session to discuss labor negotiations between the City of Ellsworth and the Ellsworth Highway Department Unit Local Number 327, Massachusetts and Northern New England Laborers District Council in accordance with MRSA Title I, Chapter 13, Section 405, Paragraph 6D.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Is my understanding that
We can still-
24 may be taken off because we're not ready to act?